Hello and welcome to this week's edition of CounterCast. I'm your host, Scott Standis, one of the cartoonists here at Counterpoint, and we're joined by Chip Bok, one of our conservative commentators. Chip has been on at the Akron, what's the name of the paper? Oh my gosh.
Akron Beacon Journal.
The Beacon Journal. He's a Pulitzer finalist. And before we get on to, we were just having a really interesting and heated discussion about politics prior, well, not heated, but sort of heated. Let's go on. But first off, now as a Pulitzer finalist, you have to have an opinion about what happened or didn't happen for the Pulitzers in the editorial cartooning category this year.
It doesn't faze me as much as it does everybody else.
Really?
It's in the rules. They cannot give they can choose not to give a prize in any category. The Pulitzers just don't mean much to me anymore, especially after the 1619 Project won a Pulitzer, or the editor who headed up the project won a Pulitzer, to be more accurate. That project was full of falsehoods. It was many historians have corrected it. They don't apologize for it. They won a Pulitzer for it. And so that's really not the sort of club I think I want to be in. So it just doesn't mean that much to me anymore.
So if you won one, you turn it down?
No, I would flog that thing for everything it's worth. And yes, I would. I would try to leverage it to jobs, payoffs, anything that I could.
So you're a conservative cartoonist, but here's the thing. I should have mentioned this in the introduction. You and I worked together many years ago for Reason Foundation magazine.
Yes.
A libertarian publication. And
right.
You were much more libertarian. Do you still consider yourself libertarian?
I certainly do. I consider myself a liberal, like Hayek considered himself a liberal, which would be, a classic liberal. I believe in free markets, free speech, and I'm not really concerned with outcomes, because if you have free people, things are going to go the way they're going to go. I'm not interested in a collective direction of the population, and that's kind of what people who call themselves liberals now are after, but they're more collectivists. They're not, so meanings get jumbled up. So most people call me a conservative now. I'm fine with that. I think that I think of myself as a libertarian. If I want to be, I always have been. I was really comfortable with Reason. I thought it was a great publication. I would say I kind of had a break with Reason with the second Iraq War.
Really?
Colin Powell convinced me in his presentation that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. I thought Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. And so I supported that war. Ironically, I was against the first Iraq War, so I was wrong twice.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. In fact, on the 10-year anniversary, I drew a cartoon just saying how stupid I felt, and how, you and I think come from the same place in many ways. We're both cynics. We both distrust government as the final conduit of any solution to virtually any problem. And when the buildup to the war, I bought into that as well. Weapons of mass destruction. I trusted Colin Powell explicitly. So I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. Whoops. Which was the gist of the cartoon. We were talking, if I may, off just before we started recording about Counterpoint has conservative cartoonists, but the two of us at least are never Trump conservatives, and I'm one of them. And you took umbrage with this, and you make a strong case why conservatives should have, and why, and myself included, should have and supported President Trump. And could you enumerate those again, the good things that happened during that administration and the things you supported?
Well, there were a lot of good things that Trump did that you can appreciate without being a Trump supporter. In my opinion, getting out of the Iraq nuke deal was a good thing.
Iran.
Or Iran nuke deal. Getting out of the climate accord was a good thing. His tax cuts were a good thing. He gets credit because he's president. I don't agree the presidents always deserve the credit for the economy, but they always get it. They also get the blame. And he had a hell of a fine economy. And he was open to Black people more than he's gotten more Black support than the left wants to admit. He helped people at the bottom level of the income scale. Their job growth increased at a greater rate. Their wealth is not probably the term, but their economic circumstances increased at a higher rate than people at the higher levels. This claim that the tax cuts only help the wealthy is false. It helped people across the board, and especially at the lower levels. So there are reasons to say Trump's okay. My thing with Trump was mostly about the people who opposed Trump. Half the country elected the guy. And the people in the media, especially, they hated Trump. But what they really hate are the half the people that supported Trump. I really believe that. And that's what I drew most of my cartoons about. The more interesting thing to me was not what Trump did and said, although it was quite interesting. And there were a lot of things to draw cartoons about. But even more interesting than that was the left's reaction to Trump.
Oh, yeah, it drove him nuts. And I think the mainstream media, and he knew it. And he played the mainstream media very, very well. I mean, this is my problem with Trump was always, attitude. I like my president to be smarter than me, to be more articulate than me, to, be empathetic. And he demonstrated none of those virtues. But I mean, maybe those days are gone. Maybe the days of having someone like John Kennedy or Ronald Reagan have passed us by, given the media market that we're in. I mean, would you say that played a role in this, or played a role in the antagonism? Because I mean, here's the thing: now that we have a President Biden, and there's actual issues that you and I completely agree on, I think that this is, I don't know, leaving a multi-trillion-dollar debt for our kids and grandkids and their kids and their grandkids and their kids and their grandkids and their kids and their grandkids is wrong. I mean, I think you and I can agree with that. So it's nice to talk about versus responding to some weird ass tweet or some crazy ass comment. We're actually, I think we're talking about policy again.
I think we are, and I think it's a crazy ass policy.
Oh yeah, no question.
$6 trillion in new programs. So yeah, it's kind of back to politics as usual. Of course, a lot of people didn't like politics as usual, and that's why they elected Trump in the first place. So we'll see how it goes. Getting back to a point you made about we're cynics. I suppose we're cynical about a lot of things. I'm not cynical about our country. I'm not cynical about certainly not the Constitution. I think that needs to be preserved. I think that people on the left don't like the Constitution. Even Obama claimed the Constitution was about negative rights, which he thought was something bad, which is to say the Constitution is negative because it restricts government from doing things. And to me, that's a positive. So there are two different ways of looking at the Constitution, left and right, which is what I really like about Counterpoint, the idea that finally you get to see, except for you when you anti-Trumpers come on, but other than that, you get to see two cartoons looking at the same issue from opposite sides, and I think that's a really cool and really unique thing.
Yeah, it really is, and I really do enjoy. I mean, and like I said, even conservatives can disagree, as we have and will. but you have to have talk someone on the left as well. That's the construct. For those of you who may not have seen Counterpoint, that's the whole idea, is that you're going to get, if you subscribe, and you know you should, you're going to get a lefty and a righty, and they're going to be, what's really best is when they take on the same issue. And I love that when we do that. And they do it visually, of course, but they also write, which is another unique product of Counterpoint, which I think is really kind of great, that you can read what the cartoonist was thinking. So, I mean, when you're writing, I mean, what's your process like, real quick? What when you, from start to finish, what's that look like?
When I write or draw, or both?
From start to finish of creating a cartoon.
Most of my time is just spent reading, and I got to be very careful, because I'll waste the day and suddenly I've only got an hour left to draw my cartoon. But I read stories and articles. I try to read the left and the right press. Not too hard to find the left press. There's not a lot in the right. I like the Wall Street Journal. I think that the Wall Street Journal's a pretty straight shooter. I like online publication called The Spectator. That's an American version of the English Spectator. And then I just keep a sketchbook. In fact, here it is. And on here, I've written stuff, but I also have just full of the idea sketches that are very crude and unfinished. And then, sometimes you get an idea and you're just not able to get that right twist at the end. And so I keep it in there. And then during the week, I might read something else. It gives me a little different perspective, and I find the answer to that twist, and I draw a cartoon that I've been thinking about for maybe 2 weeks. Other times, other times it just comes to mind. Often it's something I've read in a turn of phrase, but more often than that, it's after I've stopped, I've made my notes, I've drawn my sketches, and really I've just got to be sitting there with a pencil in my hand and kind of playing with the stuff I've been doing. And it's kind of a playfulness of mine. And again, getting back to your cynicism comment, I think it's more a matter of skepticism. And all journalists should be skeptics. We should be skeptical of what people tell us in the news, politicians especially. They've got their own agenda they want to push. People that give journalists tips that they don't want publicized, they don't want their name. They've got an agenda, and you've got to be skeptical of everything that comes through. So I apply that skepticism. And so a really long answer to a short question is all that comes in, and I twist it around. And if it works out, there's some wit to it. And I draw the cartoon. I think cartoons should be at least witty, if not funny, and they should make a point, and they should make people laugh and make them angry.
Sure. Now, in this age of political correctness, of woke culture, of cancel culture, I mean, have you been a victim of any of that? Have you had to experience any of that as an editorial cartoonist?
I haven't really had anything canceled, because there's not a hell of a lot to cancel in my case, but I have been harassed online, and it's unpleasant, and it's irrational. That's the thing that bothers me the most about it, is just the irrationality of it. And I'm getting kind of tired of, I mean, I'm of a certain age, so I actually remember Martin Luther King in his marches. I remember the civil rights movement, remember the women's movement. And just the fact that the label racist, misogynist, fascist are thrown at especially conservative cartoonists. And it's really, really frustrating, because those words mean something. If you've lived the number of years that I have, and you have, what those words actually mean. I mean, we can remember Bull Connor and the fire hoses and the dogs. And
We can remember the Beagle Baileys with Miss Buxley being chased around the desk. Ha 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 ha! Sexual harassment, sexual assault. Woo. We can so where we're coming from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, but where we draw from is from that. And as conservatives, we're looking at those issues too seriously. And how do you correct those? From my perspective, you tell me if you agree or disagree. There's a kid born in South Alabama, one of the poorest regions in the country. How do we make life better for that kid? I mean, that kid may be the one who discovers the cure for the thing that kills me. So I really want him or her to be nurtured in an education system. But then something as simple as the education system is so bad down there, and there's no way out. They don't offer here in Alabama. They don't offer invoice. What's the word I'm looking for now? I'm having a COVID moment. They don't offer not invoices, but they give you the money that you'd have going to. This is a good moment. Two old guys trying to remember a word. They give you the money to go that you would get if you went to a public school, but you could take it to a private school.
Right.
School choice here, and they don't have it. And so for you and I, we're not saying we hate poor people. On the contrary, as a conservative, I'm saying I want a system that is empirically better at improving people's lives and elevating them. Let's use that instead of continually throw money at schools, continuing to throw money at teachers unions, continuing to throw money. I'm using that as one of the examples that you and I would definitely agree on and why we're conservatives.
Well, I don't know about Alabama, but I do know that the teachers union hates school choice. And the teachers union is one of the biggest funders of the Democratic Party and the woke left. And so I think the problem is there. Yeah, people should have the right to go to the schools that they want to. Thomas Sowell, of course, is a big proponent of school choice. He grew up Black and very poor in Harlem, and he's, I think, one of the smartest people I've ever read. And he's a man of the right, and he's a big promoter of school choice. So school choice is a good thing. I'm all about opportunity, not so much about outcomes. But if you have opportunity, you've got to give people the chance to succeed. Our country was founded on that. Okay, 1619. There was also slavery at the time. I don't think that's the reason our country was founded, but not an argument I guess I want to have right now. But to your point, opportunity is what this country's all about. It's why people are sending their children alone across the desert and the Rio Grande and having them put up with the horrors of the people that take them across and the things that happen to them, because they believe in opportunity, and they believe that exists in the United States, even with the problems we have.
So before we wrap this up, is there any issue you want to bring up that I haven't about cartooning and your process, or just cartooning in general?
Well, cartooning in general, I think, has never been more popular than it is now. People love cartoons. They're just all over the place on the internet. There are a lot of publications that are still around. New publications are coming out. And so cartooning is an important, a really important thing, I think. It always has been in the country. It gives people a visual insight into things that they may not have otherwise had. I'm not so much about trying to convince somebody about any particular issue or changing their minds. I just want to show them an issue from the way I see it, that maybe is a little different perspective than something they've seen before. And I try to make it interesting. I try to make it funny, or at least I try to make it, witty. And I think people like that. And I think there's a great future for it. As far as how cartoonists get paid in that future, I'm not sure how that'll happen, but I'm pretty confident that it will work out and that we will have a great future in cartooning.
Oh, great. Thank you, Chip Bok. And you definitely make it witty. You're one of the good ones here at Counterpoint. So thank you for joining us here on CounterCast. I'm Scott Stannis, and until next time, we'll see you in the funny papers.